Hi, I'm Alec Vila, and I'm here in my home recording studio, and thought I would share this experience of trying out installing our Arc 2 from IK Multimedia. This is an advanced room correction system, and it is so that you can adjust the sound coming out of your studio monitors to be more flat to compensate for an imperfect room. Now in my studio, I do have sound absorption on the walls. I use heavy drapes as well as some homemade panels. These are bass baffles that I made using 8 inches of recycled denim insulation. And they do a really good job of keeping the sound pretty dead in here. And I also have some acoustic foam tiles on the ceiling. So I've been pretty happy with the sound in my room. And I'm always looking for, sort of affordable ways to make improvements. Found a really good deal on this software, and the reviews for it have been very solid. So I thought I'd give it a try. My monitors are the Mackie HR824s, and I've had them for 20 years. I know them very well, and I really like them. So let's see what's inside. Comes with a cardboard box with a couple of little manuals here. It's got your serial number and download link, so you can download the software. Inside the box we have mic clip and the microphone. And it's a very lightweight, plasticky feeling microphone. Looks nice. Here's the microphone in the palm of my hand here, pretty small. And the adapter that comes with the clip, it was in the clip when I pulled it out of the box, and it just took me a second to figure out that it's actually something I can remove. And which is good because this is the kind of thread that I have on my mic stand. It's larger like this. We're not worried about the sound quality as long as they know that it matches exactly what the frequency responses that they want. So let's put it to the test and get it working. All right, so I've gone ahead and set up the microphone here, and I want you to see that the mic is actually in line with the speaker tweeters, and obviously my sitting position in this chair is about 5 inches too low. So, maybe it would be better for me if I were to raise my sitting position up 5 inches or so and be in the perfect sweet spot. However, I've also haven't noticed a whole lot of difference because sometimes I sit on my knees, and it's not that different on these monitors. The dispersion of the speaker is pretty wide, so there's a nice wide sweet spot. And like I said before, I also walk around the room when I'm mixing. I go to the back, I go out of the room sometimes and listen in the living room and hear what it sounds like out there. And so it's I'm going to go with what the diagram shows where to put the microphone, because I want the mic to be in the perfect sweet spot for the measurement test. And then, I may adjust my sitting position after this. And it's sitting, approximately right over my head. So if I were to turn around and look at the monitors, it's kind of, where I'm at. And I tried to make it exactly in the middle here. So let's take a look at the software next and see what it can do. All right, so we're going to bring up Arc. And there it is. And the first screen is just a useless splash screen, so let's just go to the next. Now we've got microphone selection. If you have the newest one, this new MEMS microphone, click over here. And the hardware setup is all set up for me already. The Arc measurement must operate at 48 kilohertz. If you have an audio interface that only works at 44.1 kilohertz, then this system is not going to be compatible. Okay, next screen is the level check. Now this microphone that I'm using right now to speak with you is the MEMS microphone. I wanted you to be able to hear what it sounds like, because in the manual they say you can use this for recording it's an omnidirectional microphone that's made for measurement, and the noise floor is still pretty high, as you can tell. So I don't know how useful this would be for recording in a small studio where you've got walls and things. So anyway, there it is. And now if I want to play the test sweep and make sure that it's in the right zone here on the input level, I need to first change my listening volume to 0. So let's bring up my monitor control section, bring listening volume down all the way. You want to do that so that you don't blow out your speakers. So when you start the test, it's actually silent, and then you bring it up slowly and see where the input level sits. Now, the goal isn't to bring up the loudness of your speakers until you hit the input level, because you could, obviously you don't want it to be too loud. So I'm actually just bringing up my level control until it's comfortable in my studio. Don't get too loud. They want at a moderate listening volume. So for me, this level is pretty good. And then I would adjust the microphone level slider to get the input level into the right zone. So let me play that test again at the current level, and I'll adjust the slider. So that's a good level according to this. Let's go to the next screen. Room measurement. Okay, I'm supposed to take 7 measurements, but this screen tells me nothing about where to place these. And it says I need to see the user manual. So now I have to go to this document here. And let me tell you, this document, I've already opened it to the correct page. It is page 31 where you can get the level. It didn't automatically bring it up to that. I already had this open. I found this already, and I will go ahead and zoom in so you can see what the level settings should look like. Now, this shows 14 positions. You only need a minimum of 7, and it says that the positions aren't critical, but you need to do it in a symmetrical way. So the first position, you want it to be right in the middle of the 2 speakers. And the other positions, like if I just went up a little bit to the right over here for one, I would want to go to the, that would be to the left, and then to the right, and then to the left, and then to the right, and then to the left, and then to the right, to get a symmetrical positioning. This is something that you would want to use markers on the floor to get it right. They don't say that, and the software doesn't help you position your microphones in any way. So if you want to do this right, what I did is I set the microphone stand exactly in the right place, measuring with tape measures to the speakers, and then I put a quarter underneath the microphone stand. And then I moved it off to the 2 position, and I put another quarter there, and I moved it to the 3 position with, knowing what my distance was. And luckily I have a carpet that has a kind of a grid pattern, so I was able to do that pretty easily and put a quarter there. And I basically marked all the positions with quarters. And then I went ahead and took all the measurements and did that all over again. So let me close this up, and let me show you what it looks like when you take the measurement. Now, when you're taking measurements, it's going to do the left channel and then the right channel. You can't hear that with the single microphone I'm using because it's just a mono recording. But the first one is going to the left and the second one is going to the right. And basically it'll just go from one position to the next, repeating this over and over. So I'll go ahead and take all my measurements now and show you that. right, when you're done taking the measurements, click Next. Then you're going to want to give your measurement a name. And choose an icon. And they have all kinds of speaker icons, so you can get yours to look just like your monitors. It's a very slow scroll. There's some Mackies. And it's saved, and now you can go to the plugin. Alright, I've got a session open in Logic, and I put Arc 2 here on the master bus. It's important for it to be at the very end. I've just got a bunch of scopes here at the very end, so the other one past Arc, I just put mix checker on here, and I'm going to talk about that later. But what I've got right here now is the front panel, and as you can see, the measurements that I've taken have shown up. I've actually taken 3 different measurements, and I did this because I was just so astounded by this curve here that I had to triple check to make sure that it was going to be consistent. And so let me just show you that this is why it's really important to get your measurements right on the floor. Put some markers on the floor or something when you're doing this, because between the first and the second one, you can see the shift here. I'll go back and forth here. You see there is some shift, but between the second and the third one, where after I put the markers down, it's almost imperceptible. It's just, if you look at the high end here on the left, there's a tiny, tiny shift. So I'm going to go with one of these latter measurements, since they are more consistent with each other. And so then let's talk about this curve, this orange curve here. It's just so crazy. Now, I have, $1,200 speakers. I bought them 20 years ago, and they are old, and they've probably, gotten worn and aren't as flat as they used to be. It's probably an issue. And also, the left side was serviced when I think I had a problem with the amp, and I sent it into Mackie, and they sent it back to me. So it's not performing the same as the right. And look at what is happening between 50 and 100 hertz on both of these. I don't even know how that's possible. Maybe there's some bass wave cancellation happening. Maybe there's a node or some sort of null spot in the room. But I'm losing these bass frequencies. And I have a room that has full sound absorption all over, and it's very dead in here. And I'm not a professional sound engineer that would, I haven't hired anyone to fix my room up. I've just done more than most people who have home studios in terms of actually treating their room. And still, it's horrible. So I'm glad I've done the treatment, and I'm glad I've tried this software to see what the measurements are like. And you'll see that I have this boxy, area. The upper mids you don't want a lot of this, and I've got a boost here. And then the high frequencies, apparently I have less than flat. And so I find that all very interesting. Another thing about this is that it's actually funny, because the correction is going to make my sound more hi-fi. And that's because they're going to boost the high frequencies here to get that up. And they're going to boost the very low frequencies that also we like to hear. And then they're going to cut all the boxy mids. Now, is that a coincidence? I don't know. But to get more flat, that's going to end up sounding more hi-fi and special. So that actually is something that I'm wondering how that's going to affect my mixes. Because if my mixes sound all hi-fi and special, is the end result going to actually be flatter and translate less exciting on other playback systems? But I do always check my mixes on car stereos and my iPhone and my little boombox in the living room things, just to see how they translate. And if they sound too dull, I'll brighten them up. And but I wonder if I would actually prefer to mix on the old system that sounds crappier than the way this is going to sound. But I do think it's really interesting to see these curves here. Aiming for the green flat line, and you can see that even with the correction, it's not flat. The white line is the corrected line, and it also isn't the same on the left and the right. So the left side they corrected, but they still didn't make it match the right side. So there's a difference there. And let's see, there's target curve you can go for. So you can use like this high frequency roll off, and there's a couple other different ones. There is a virtual monitoring section, which has boombox, car stereo, multimedia speakers, a TV set. And you know what? These sound pretty convincing. I have the Mix Checker app, which I bought and paid way too much money for. And this actually sounds more convincing to me when I put on the boombox or the car stereo mode. I feel like I'm actually listening to a boombox, or I'm actually in the car. And this is just included. I didn't even know that this was in this package. Let's see. What else? Let's go to the edit section. This is where you can customize your curves if you want to just make an adjustment. You want to tweak it yourself, and then you would select those over here using one of these custom slots. So, and then there's a section here called monitor, and this looks a lot like one of those Mackie big knobs or something like that, where you can, control the volume, and you can dim it by clicking this button, and it'll dim according to this control here. And then you can mute it clicking this button, and you can listen to it in different modes such as stereo or mono or the sides. And I guess if I had a hardware controller that I could just dedicate to this, that would kind of be a cool thing. But I don't have that, so it's got limited use to me. But I do like to be able to switch to mono, although I wish that I could just click on this mono button instead of having to drag this control. Because if I just brought this up really fast, I would just click to mono, click to stereo. That's better for me. And I have plugins that will do that, so I'll probably just use the plugins. And then down at the bottom here, you've got a meter section and a correction button. This is what you use to turn the correction on and off. And this section is active no matter which of the top panels is going. And then this trim control only affects the correction. So I'd have to turn the correction on. Oh, it's too loud, which is what I noticed. And it sounded louder than the version that was not corrected. And so I trimmed it down a little bit so that when I flip back and forth, they had the same relative perceived volume. And that's pretty much how this works. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to switch the audio so you can listen to the playback, and it'll just be mics in front of the speakers, and that's the best thing I can do for you. I'm not going to be using this microphone in front of me anymore. It'll just be the mic in front of the speakers, so when I speak, I'll be off axis. All right, so now you are listening to a pair of Crown CM-700s angled in an XY configuration for stereo. And they are at the sweet spot listening level, balanced between the two speakers. This is about as close as we're going to get for being able to evaluate the sound coming out of the speakers. So here is the uncorrected with the plug-in in bypass, so you could just hear the full volume. Don't wanna live in a graveyard. Don't wanna come to the end before I come home. Before I come home. I wanna paint your picture and dance with my friends before I come home. Okay, so I'm gonna back that up a little bit, and now we're gonna take the plugin off of bypass, and I'm going to go ahead and pump up my monitors another. I have a 5 dB increment here that I can use. It's just to get a more similar level. So it's going to sound about the same volume. This is with no correction, so we'll start it with no correction. It should sound pretty much like it just did a second ago. And then we're going to turn the correction on so you can hear the difference. And it won't say anything. I'll just go back and forth, and you just have to watch for this little light here to tell you when I'm using the correction. and dance with my friends before I come home. Before I come home, I'm gonna ride the sunrise and touch the sky before I come home. Before I come home, 'cause every day we are rising up with a golden sun. We're writing our own stories, the stars in the same movie, and the best is coming on. I wanna be an inventor and sail the seas before I come home. Before I come home, I'm gonna fill all my pages with stories of love before I come home. Before I come home. So we walked through the process of installing Arc 2 version 2.5. We recorded sound measurements around the listening area, and we heard the results of the processing in my system. And I know it's totally impossible to evaluate this system by listening to a YouTube video and the microphones on the speakers. It's actually really hard for me sitting in the room to evaluate the changes as well, because my ears can't tell if the speakers are now flat. They can tell me that the sound is different, and I can see the curves on the graph, so I know what was changed. If I followed the instructions carefully and the unit is working like it should, then I should be able to trust the system, right? And I'm shocked at how different the sound is. I mean, I can hear the lifts and the highs and the deep lows and the scoop and the low mids. I also hear a wider sound stage. It feels like I'm immersed in the sound and I'm like wearing headphones. I hope that's good. I really don't know. The goal isn't to make the sound more pleasing, and the software is supposed to help me make better mixes by making the corrections to the sound that I hear so it better represents what's actually on the record. The real test is to mix the song and see how it translates. So we'll see how this affects my mixes in the future. For now, visit my BandCamp page and listen to the recording of Before I Come Home on your system and compare it to what you heard in the video through the speakers and the changes, and tell me, do you think the mix that I made suffered from the deficiencies in my system? I mean, who knows? I hope this helps you install and use Arc 2 in your home studio, or if you've already got it, I'd love to hear your experiences with it, so leave some comments and hit that like button and let me know that you watched the video, and buy a copy of my song if you like it. Thanks again, and happy mixing and recording.